honored and excited to share with you today that we are going to be having a speaker on, and his name is Chris Cusimano, and he is actually here. So thank you guys for putting up with our Buy Dirt song as we introed in, and now we're going to shift into an exciting full-packed day of not so much tech, but media. We're going to speak media for most of the day. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to welcome in Chris Cusimano, and I'm going to ask Chris, can you please tell us who you are and where you're from?
What's going on? Well, you already said it. I'm Chris Cusimano with Southeast Florida, the West Boca office, doing Boca Raton, Coral Springs, Delray Beach, Parkland, Boynton Beach, those areas.
Okay, great. And what is it you pretty much focus on in your business as far as lead generation wise?
Well, it's funny to say that, actually. So every day, it's taped here, I have what I call the daily HBC. Obviously, you can't see it, but it's a list of tasks that I do every day. And it's all about connecting with people, building relationships, and, essentially pick and select people that you want to work with. I call it the Dream 300, and then connected with them through story, and then kind of spoiling them and rinse and repeat. And I guess that's what got me into the whole podcast / YouTube adventure that we're going on. We're going to talk about today.
Thanks for bringing me back into that. That is what we're going to be talking about today's podcast. And Chris has a podcast he started here recently, and I've listened to every episode, and he's getting better and better with each one. And he's pretty amazing as it is. He's got that gift of gab, so it works really well for him. Before we dive right into this, Chris, I just wanted to thank again everybody who's come on today. Thank you for coming back after family reunion. I know you guys probably have digested quite a bit over the past couple of weeks. So thanks for jumping on and continuing this journey with us to continue to educate ourselves. So Chris, we're talking podcasts today. What made you decide you wanted to start a podcast?
Well, first I want to say hi to everyone too. Hey guys, what's going on? Well, let's start with the end goal in mind. It's kind of like, have you ever seen Breaking Bad?
Yes.
By the way, you're over there. That's why I keep looking over there. So Breaking Bad, they always start with like the ending, and then they build up to it. Because like, oh, what happened? And then they tell the story. I guess I want to start with that. So let's give you my end goal and work way backwards. The end goal, which I'm nowhere near now, admittedly so, is to eventually have my team up and running 90% self-sufficiently without much need from me, so I can focus on creating content on multiple platforms. And I think this is actually this would be really exciting for maybe newer agents that are on here, or maybe agents who are just trying to find another way to reinvigorate or reignite themselves to get going, because today's a big opportunity that I want to try to share with you that I really hope that it motivates a lot of you. And before I start going on my tangents, I know you kind of want to go back and forth with the Q&A session. How do you want to do this?
Listen to your shows, man. I know.
I kind of just take over. It's just who I am.
Well, before we do get too deep, I probably should do the same thing. I should introduce who I am. So I'm this guy that just started talking on here, but my name is Ryan Yarbrough. I'm your regional technology director. Myself and our amazing group of technology trainers in South Florida put this show together every single month at the final Tuesday of the month. We're calling this February 29th, since February was a little bit short this month. We're going to call this February 29th. So we're still in February doing our February show, and we will be having one at the end of this month, which is going to be March 29th. So stay tuned for March 29th. We're going to be doing that one on listings. We'll have, at the end of the day, we'll be showing some information on that. But again, my name is Ryan Yarbrough, and you have a bunch of the Market Center Tech trainers that are going to be in the chat today. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to answer. And this day is going to be going through all different types of media. But today, Chris is our keynote speaker, and he actually started a podcast. And I like the opportunity to bring him in because of the fact that he's close enough to the beginning that he can tell you all the pains going through podcasting, why he's doing it, and also what results he's getting from it. So I got my spiel out so we can get everything that you're going to talk about in right now.
I do have a habit of overtaking platforms, if you will. So at any time you want to just jump in, let me know. I'm a chatter. So like I was saying before, I really hope that what I shared today is going to excite you guys to create your own podcast. And even I'm going to talk about YouTube in a little bit too, also, even though this is not what I'm here to do, but they play hand in hand. And the number one reason I think why every one of us should, I got to take off my email because it's the notification. So the number one reason, I'll just start with that, why everyone should be doing podcasts and even YouTube video content, is that right now a lot of you are like, I'm not doing that. And that's the exact reason why you need to do it. Because a lot of our competitors, our colleagues are not going to dive into this thing. So I want you to kind of imagine, kind of have a visual. If we had a harp sound effect, this is when we'll play it, when we're going kind of back in time, kind of like a Saved by the Bell episode where you see like a pink outline of the screen. You remember that? I don't know if you guys were Saved by the Bell fans. And kind of just visual back in the day when it was like 2012 when I taught my first class, and I built my business by what I call the Dream 300 method that's amplified through Facebook. Right? So I built it with Facebook, and I was asked to teach this class, and finally I had the nerve to do it, and I got up there about 10 years ago and I taught it. And in this class, I taught about my systems, and it was so excited. I was, aren't you going to do this? And a bunch of people in that room were just like, nah, I'm not going to do this. But this is 10 years ago. This has been Facebook, even had Facebook ads or any of that stuff. And a lot of people still weren't even on Facebook yet. And I remember I said something, and if I was as brazen as I am now, or as confident as I am now, I would have said it more boldly. But I did say under my breath, oh, actually, I said it out loud to him. I said, pretty much, the world doesn't care if you want to learn this new tool and use it. The world will still eventually use it. If they're not now, they will eventually. So you can either jump on the train now and learn this new tool called Facebook and do exactly what is proven to work in my business and do that, or you can get left behind. And this was a lot of the older agents who were stuck with like the postcard marketing, expireds and physicals and all that. And sure enough, a lot of people got left behind, and it took them a while to catch up. Now, this is the same thing. So fast forward today, this is the same exact speech I'm going to give with podcast, Instagram, YouTube, but mostly we talk about podcasts and YouTube, right? So I'm gonna admit right now. So if you go to listen to my podcast, or if you go to my YouTube channel, or even my Instagram, I am by far nowhere near an expert. You're gonna find other people with far more viewers, far more subscribers, and all that stuff. But the one thing I will promise each and everyone here is that within the next 24 to 36 months, I will be an expert on these platforms, and I will be utilizing these tools to generate business for my team. It's just going to take time to learn that. As a matter of fact, one of the books I'm reading now is all about YouTube. And, I have a ton of books. I have books about Instagram and all that stuff. So I am obsessed with learning these platforms. But why? Okay. Well, I keep saying the word platforms, and that's very important because there's a new way of selling in these days, right? So there's a new way of connecting with people, or at least how I understand it. I understand that how back in the day, or not too long ago, even in the 90s and before, there used to be what's called information asymmetry. And I teach about this in my classes all the time when I teach, so I'll give a Cliff Note version of it now. Basically, information asymmetry was how one party has more information over on a product than another, right? So for example, if I'm selling these sunglasses to somebody else, and that person, that buyer, doesn't know how long I've owned them for, if they've ever been repaired, if they've ever been broken, what kind of material this is, and all that. But I know, because I owned this for 2 years. So that's where this distrust of salespeople have come in, because we are buying products from someone when they have more information than us. And a lot of times we will get a bunk product, or not what we're sold a bill of goods, snake oil salesman, if you will. Well, that information asymmetry is now gone. That way of selling is now gone because of the internet. And we can all of us are realtors here. We can all attest that our clients probably know more about their listing of their house than we do, what their neighbors will sell for, how much the house is worth. And same with buyers. They know the neighborhoods better than we do because they're obsessed with that more than we are in their particular situation. So the information asymmetry is not there. So the way that I now do my business, and I preluded to it earlier, was I have 3 steps. I do what I call my Dream 300, as I mentioned before. I build my Dream 300 by leveraging a certain Facebook model. In other words, I invite 300 people, well, mine's more like 5 now, of people who I want to do business with, who is not going to be a pain in the butt. And then I persuade them to work with me by telling my story in a number of different ways to hopefully they will hire me. And when they do hire me, I justify that decision with, I guess, a tasty menu, since we're talking about invitations. Like I sent them an invitation to work with me. And I guess I would justify them with what's on my menu at that party, if you will. Well, here's the thing. Before recent times, in order for us to sell ourselves or our story to our audience and connect with them on a more personal level, because we're no longer just, doing information asymmetry, we would have to, and if we wanted to do it in video format, we would have to be on NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, whatever you watch, whatever cable networks. Or if you want to do it via your voice, you would have to be on the radio. The thing is, unless you had talk shows on those platforms, you couldn't consistently get yourself out there. So all of our marketing were very static, like postcards and stuff like that. And social media started changing that. And now with the evolution of high-speed servers and the cloud and all that, we can pretty much create our own platforms that we didn't have at our disposal before. And now we can use these platforms to tell our story, to connect with people, to build an audience, right? Because that's what we're here to do. Because business is all about acquisition. In other words, our jobs are acquiring customers while reducing our churn rates. But I guess that's a good point. So we're trying to acquire customers and reduce our churn rates. And the best way, in my opinion, to reduce your churn rates is if you connect with them on a personal level with your story, with your brand. People buy the brand behind somebody. So, like, in my opinion, is if you have these tools like a YouTube channel and a podcast to tell your story in visual format and to tell your story on an audio device of their choice, which is their cell phone, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we use these tools to do that? So Ryan came back on because I'm starting to ramble.
No, not so much ramble. I was going to ask a question to kind of just jump in. What do you consider your channel to be about? So you're just telling us now that you will have to have your platform to basically speak off of. What is your goal of your channel?
I don't know. So which one, podcast or YouTube?
Let's call it podcast.
Since we're talking about podcasts. Well, I guess they're both the same. I don't know. So I'm being quite honest. I don't know exactly what my avatar looks like. Is it going to be other real estate agents to recruit on my team, or maybe get exposure for referrals across the country? Is it direct to the consumer? I don't know. So my game plan on both of those formats is to create content in different ways, different styles, and see what sticks. Remember, you're not creating content for you. You're not creating self-serving content for you. You're creating content for your consumer, and how you can acquire most eyeballs on on your brand.
So you're basically throwing spaghetti against the wall right now and seeing what sticks, right?
And then check the analytics and adjust, see what the other people are doing in your genre, adjust what's working for them, adjust to that.
I put your link to your channel in the chat here. So anybody who wants to go check it out, they're welcome to go check it out. The most recent one I had listened to is the one that you had Howard on there with. I honestly haven't listened to the very newest one yet. But that one was very intriguing. I really enjoyed that one because we actually got to know Howard a little bit better. And if anybody doesn't know Howard, you got to go listen to that episode because it's a good episode. You get to see his personality in there a lot. And if you know Howard's personality, you'll love it. Is that one of your goals when you're talking to people, is to try and get them engaged and to talk with you, or is it more informational? What is your actual goal during your whole podcast?
Well, right now, people are attracted to the person, the story. And I know when I'm listening to learning about people, that's what I'm attracted to. I want to hear about them. So when I had Howard on, I know him on the business side. We talk a lot about business, but I didn't know anything about him. And I wanted to know what got him to where he is. What drove him? What's his childlike life? I even asked him, why is he still single? I got deep on that stuff because that's what people really care about. They care about the brand, and the brand is you. So we're all, again, I can go on tangent, stop me anytime, but we're all selling the same product. Imagine this is a house, right? Why is someone going to hire me or you if you're just saying you're the best, you're the best, you're the best? Look at me, my poop don't stink. And this other one's telling a story about their life and their family, whatever. Who are you going to relate to and connect more? The story, right? The story behind the person. And with Howard, he's a great guy, and I know that, but maybe the rest of the world doesn't know it, and they should. So I figured I would ask that. To continue on with that, I'm just going to say it. I'm a Howard Stern fan. I like Howard Stern. If you haven't listened in the last 10 years, don't judge him. The guy has evolved immensely. You know, he does animal rescue, he saves kittens, he saves birds. He's a feminist. He's all about women's rights and equal rights for all. He's a great guy if you just give him a chance now, not what he used to be. So I just want to put that out there. But he does really fantastic interviews. And this is where people might not like what I say, or maybe they will, but I'm just going to be honest because that's who I am. I was going listening to his interviews, and then I'm not a political guy, but just from what from the outside sources, he was going to have Hillary Clinton on, and I was like, oh, ew, her, right? But then he had her on, and he got deep. He went to an hour and a half conversation about her life, her emotions, how she felt all the way from everything from her childhood to the things that Bill Clinton did to her, to losing to Trump, all these things. And she got deep and personal. I'm like, you know what? If she did this before the election, she wouldn't have lost, right? In my opinion. And it just made me, I started thinking like, wow, I didn't really like this person until I got to know this person. And then there's a rapper named Kendrick Lamar. It wasn't my cup of tea, wasn't my type of, type of rap music, if you will, but I listened to the interview. And I was just blown away how intelligent this man is and why he's doing music the way he's doing and who he's putting it to. And I became a big fan of Kendrick Lamar. And that's the power of telling your story on platforms. It's just people might have a bad opinion about who you are until they get to really know who you really are. And why not leverage these tools if they're available to us? So that's why I dive deep to answer your question, Ryan.
I'm glad you brought that up because you actually went into the question I was going to ask you next. So you kind of went right down the path. So I did meet with you earlier before, and we had discussed kind of some of the things that we wanted to talk about. And I was hoping that you would go there. So thank you very much. I think that's a main point to talk about. Why would you have a platform? Well, that's why you have a platform. You get the opportunity to actually make yourself human because you get to talk, right? I mean, that's some of the problems we have. You were just talking about Hillary. We get these political figures or just figures of any sort, like a rapper, and you don't have a clue who these people are. You're just supposed to enjoy their music, but it's hard to enjoy if you don't like it. I think of an example before is the Tampa Bay Rays are close to where I live, and they did a very good job during their games of doing these like little mini series on the players, getting to know the players. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, again, close to me, they didn't do a very good job of that. You didn't know who the players were or anything like that. But as they decided to start doing the same thing that the Rays did, they brought you in closer. Now they've got all these little mini series. So a lot of people are starting to pick up on this and starting to do that because you become more of a fan and closer to whatever it is that you're interested in if you get that insider scoop. So you're using the same platform right here to kind of give an insider scoop on not just who you are, but also who your guests are that you're bringing on. So that's pretty much what I got out of watching some of your podcasts. Is that really your goal?
For now, yeah, I think the way where I'm going to go. The difficulty at this point is getting guests comfortable enough to do that. So I kind of have to bombard them with them, like I did with Howard. I didn't tell him I was going to ask him about that stuff. So I was like, "Hey, man, surprise!" But he was a good soldier about it, and he was a champ about it, and he did his thing. I do want to go back a little bit. When you were talking, there was two things that happened that made me want to start creating a podcast. As you can see, I even have like equipment and stuff. I'm like super dorky even.
That was going to be my next question. We're going to go into that.
We'll go into that. So I'm an avid reader. I mean, if you look behind me, there's book after book after book. They're all open for the most part. This one's open. There's two that are open over here that you can't see. But as a matter of fact, this is a really good book called Traffic Secrets. It's from Russell Brunson. He does a lot of good internet marketing stuff. I'm sure a bunch of you heard of him. But inside of this book, it's about generating traffic for your business. So of course that's our job, if you will, to generate traffic for our business. So I bought it and I'm reading it. And he makes a really good, he told a really good story about Arsenio Hall in it. And I hope that the story kind of hits you like it hit me. Well, it's Arsenio Hall had the biggest talk show back in the day, right? On Fox. Everyone was on his talk show. And he eventually got canceled by Fox, and he ended up being on The Apprentice, and he was on a Celebrity Apprentice, and they had a challenge. And in that challenge, he was pitted. It was him versus another group. His group versus another group was a group challenge of who can raise the most money for charity by calling celebrity friends to donate money. And they all raised money except for Arsenio Hall, who used to be the king back in the day, right? So basically what happened was they asked them, like, why do you think no one gave you any money or help for this charity? And this is what you may miss if you didn't really think about it deeply, is that he said, when I had a platform, I wouldn't even have to get the phone barely. I didn't have to press the last number in the digits of the phone and someone would pick up. They would pick up right away because they can use my platform to connect and get a message out. Now that I'm canceled for a few years, I'm out of sight, out of mind. I don't have a platform to use and I can't get anyone to pick up my phone call. And that's the thing. That's the same thing with us. If our voice is not out there, if we don't have the ability to connect with people and be their top of mind. I mean, in the MREA book, Gary Keller says that they only think of 2 realtors. See, look, I really do read. In the MREA book, he talks about they only think about the top 2 realtors comes to mind. And Arsenio Hall's story is a very good point. People didn't feel he wasn't important anymore because they didn't really hear much about him. He didn't have a platform. And that's the same with us. So it's relatively free to start a podcast. It's not free. I mean, you have equipment and stuff, but I mean, I just spent a little too much and I should have. But you can do my first episode I did on my iPhone, and you're just telling your story. And I think the biggest thing that gets people's way, and if I'm going too far, let me know. These are just things that are coming to my head as I'm talking. The biggest concern I always get when I'm trying to convince my team to start a podcast or be on more of my episodes, right? But they won't. And their biggest concern is one, they don't want people to judge them, which I think is silly. Well, I'll get into more of that in a minute. But 2, they don't feel like they have anything to say. And that's nonsense. This whole conversation right here, if I was just talking to Ryan, is a podcast. The conversation that you have your wife or your husband or your daughter or your brother or whoever about anything in depth is a podcast. You're just talking, right? That's what talk show hosts are. They're just talking. So if you just simply press record, right? You don't have to do it live. You just hit record and just start having a conversation, and then you can just put it out there. And that's an episode. So every month, every other week on our team, we have what's called Seinfeld email days. I get really deep in this and I'm not going to do it, but it's going to make more sense in a minute. So we have emails. We don't do the typical just listed 4-bed, 2-bath, open house emails that you see, because no one cares about that. Our emails are called Seinfeld emails because they are just like a Seinfeld episode. They are about nothing, absolutely nothing. They're about nothing. They're just what's going on in our lives at that time. Whatever. Did your son or grandson or daughter just color over your brand new couch? Talk about that. We just have an email, and at the very end, we'll tie in something real estate into it. And then we send out a Seinfeld email. We meet on Google Meet, just like this, every 2 months, and we all help each other write each other's Seinfeld emails to send out. Well, my point is, it's the same thing on a podcast. You should have some sort of structure. But if you just have an open conversation with someone about nothing, don't overplan it. You're a human being. You know how to communicate. Naturally, something interesting is going to come out. And you just keep talking about that interesting thing. So don't worry too much about content. Have a basic idea what you're going to talk about and just hit record. And then you'll see some magic happens. And if it doesn't, then you don't use it. Prime example, we just did a podcast. We were doing it for Black History Month. A couple of my colleagues who are African-American, we were going to talk about what it's like to be African-American as a realtor, or just in the housing market in general as African-American. We're talking about redlining and all these different things. And then the conversation got, I thought, too deep that we didn't want to use that episode, but we are going to re-record it. But my point is, if you have something that you record in a podcast and you don't really like the way it turns out, then you just delete it. No one ever heard it anyways. So just press record and get going. It's kind of my big point there.
Good point. I was just going to say, so if you're actually interested in doing a podcast, the main thing is just start, right? It doesn't really matter what the content is, just start. Because eventually you're going to build a platform around something you're probably passionate about.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about things that you're passionate about, I hope, right?
Yeah. Or why would you do it? If you're just doing it because you want listeners or viewers, they're going to see right through it.
Right. It's got to be authentic.
Got to be you.
All right. So let's back up here a little bit. We're talking about why you got into podcast. Now, when you started out, you don't have you're not in the garage, right? You're not in your mom's basement or anything like that. So what is it? Where are you at? What are you doing when you set this up? All the equipment and stuff that you had to go get. let's talk about what you actually did first, and then we'll go into what you might have done differently if you were to start over.
That's very good. So most people won't start, especially if you're analytical, high S or high C, because you want to make sure you have all the answers before you begin. And I'm going to tell you this, no one's going to be listening to you first 40 or so episodes anyhow. No one hears you. You have no audience. So I would just say, just start. And so the very first episode I did was on my iPhone. I connected my mic to it, and I downloaded an app called Fairlight. And I downloaded to this app called Fairlight. Can't see it, but it's, I guess if I put it to the camera, well, it's called Fairlight, whatever. And then you can record as I'm talking, you can see it pulsating. So it's recording my voice. And then all I did was download the recording, and then I uploaded it onto the podcast streams. That was episode 1. And then episode 2, I went to earbuds, and then I started editing out my deep breaths, because I did take a lot of deep breaths and I mumble a lot. I started taking out my ums, and then I stopped caring about that. And I ended up buying a microphone and what's called a sound recorder. And I spent all this money on a sound recorder. And as I'm ordering it, because I'm told that I'm supposed to order this, I'm like, why am I ordering that when your computer's a recorder? And then I did a couple episodes, and the sound quality was great. And then I'm like, well, this is stupid. I have all this equipment around. And then anyway, so then I came across Elgato. Elgato has great mics and great stands and headphones and all that stuff. It has these cool stream decks where I don't even know if my camera's set up right for it, probably not, where I can change the look of my face. I can change my voice. I can do all these cool things. So my point is just start and press record, and then you just get better over time, because no one's listening or paying attention to you right now anyhow. But to help you, if you have a couple bucks in your pocket, let's just say you have, like right now, this camera is an Elgato camera. It's not my computer camera because it'll be fuzzy. I learned that too. If you want to go to elgato.com and just buy a bunch of stuff, that would help you out a lot, but they're not cheap. So if you want to do it in video format, you can just do it on, a bunch of you guys have your mics and your camera, just do it on there, and you can record it on your phone, or you can record it directly into your computer with a regular mic. And then you just straight up from there.
I'm going to pause right there, because I want to make sure that we point out, I'm not advocating that anybody goes out and just buys a whole bunch of equipment. And I would red light, green light this a little bit. I would suggest that you first make sure that you go out and you're actually doing it. You first, like he did it on his phone first. Okay. Do it and become consistent in it, because the key to success in anything is just consistency. It doesn't matter what's on there, just do it. Okay. So again, don't go out and buy all these big mics and all that. It is helpful if you have a nice mic that picks up your voice, because that's what you're using most of the time, right?
Yeah, it definitely helps. I have a lot of speech issues, if you will, and having a mic with special things built in and this little thing in front really helps with that. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, you asked about the location. I was going to answer that unless you had a question.
Go ahead.
All right. So this can get really deep. So I work out in my garage. I work out of my house. I'm a big proponent of maximizing every minute that we have in our day. Time is fleeting. So I don't drive to the gym. I don't drive back. I don't drive to the office, drive back unless I have to meet with my team or someone at the office. That saves me about three or so hours per day. So with that said, I'm in my house now, and I just have this corner in this room that I just got these plastic panels to change up the views. I have this little dorky thing here because I thought it would be a nice little visual. And then I have my book rack. That's it.
My favorite part, your little thing flashed in the background with all the Mario Brothers stuff on. It's my favorite part.
Yeah, why not? It was like $100. Randomly found it. You can put in whatever you want and whatever. Anyways, go ahead.
It's eye catching though. It's something different. I haven't seen it anywhere else. You've got all the books there, which is nice. It's nice to see the whole book, the flip book, all that stuff in there. So what else would you suggest that people get if they're going to set up their own home studio?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you're going to do it like on a visual format like this, then of course you want to have it somewhat visually appealing. So let's talk about that. Again, like I'm telling you from the very beginning, I'm not an expert. I don't know which way all this stuff is going to go. So my initial idea was I was going to maximize content. I was going to record my podcast, right? And then after record it, then I could put it on YouTube. But I'm learning that no one really cares to watch podcasts on YouTube because the analytics are poor. So now I'm learning that's not what it's for. However, I still want to record it because I want to take out clips used for social. So you could record a podcast, right? And you could talk about a subject, and say the podcast is 45 minutes long. In that 45 minutes, you will have 30-second or 45-second clips that now you can take out first, both audibly and visually inaudibly, that you can use for social content, right? So you can look at it like that. If you're always concerned about what content you can create, record your podcast, and then that. So the recording, that you can edit it. If you have a Mac, you can use what's it called, iMovie, for free. I use Camtasia. I like Camtasia, but there's better programs, Adobe Premiere and all that. But again, iMovie's free. You can simply edit on there. And so if you're wondering, so first off, YouTube's not going anywhere, right? It's owned by Google. I think they made $50 million last year, like literally. So they're not going anywhere. It's the number 2 search engine behind Google. So don't worry about that. And also with podcasts, I have people say, well, what if podcasts aren't going to be around forever? Well, they are. Not, maybe not on each platform, right? Because there's like Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, whatever, Google. But the thing is, if you load your podcast up on all those platforms, all those different types of channels or avenues, and even if half of them go out, the other half will still be there. And then like, oh, that's a lot of work, but it's not. There's a cool site called Buzzsprout, I think it's called buzzsprout.com. And you can get an account there. I think it's like, I don't even know. I could be wrong. $20 a month. And then all you do is you create all of your channels across all those platforms, and then you link it into Buzzsprout. So you only load it in once, and Buzzsprout will kick out your podcast and your descriptions and all that to all those different channels.
Thanks for answering one of the questions in the chat right there. Appreciate that.
Oh, I didn't see it, but I'm glad it's there. Oh, I do see it, by Brett.
Yep. So he's using Buzzsprout for syndicating. Can you please write the website here? Maybe you can get one of our market center tech trainers to get that for you. There you go. You already got it. Good job. Chris, we're going to make you on our AMCTD. All right. So you're syndicating through Buzzsprout. You're recording all the stuff. You got your studio set up in a room in your house. So what's next? If I was setting up, what would be the next thing? Would you say that all the stuff you bought is necessary? Or do you think that starting out, if you were to go back right now, what would you not buy, and what would you save your money on, just focus on?
I don't even know if I have it here. I bought a sound recorder, which I mentioned earlier. That's a waste of money. So a sound recorder you don't need. Again, you literally just, if I was going to do it again, I know it does cost money. I know what you're trying to get me to say. What you can get away with is literally just do it on your phone with a Fairride app. That's what you can get away with. If you want to spend a little money, and just get it done, buy yourself an Elgato mic. These are actually not Elgato headphones, but just headphones. That's really it. You'll plug it into your computer and the mic. So how do I record it? That's a good question. I don't even know if this is the best platform for this, but this is what I'm using. There's a website called Restream, Restream, and there's that. So what you do there, this says Restream. Thanks, Otto. Correct. Restream.com. If you go there, you can create an account. And again, I think it's minimal cost. And you can connect, but if you want to stream your podcast live, you can connect pretty much whatever you want, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Or if you just want to record, you can just do that. So and Restream is really cool because it's just like this, but they have all these cool little features. They have waiting rooms. And then if you're streaming in multiple different platforms and people are chatting, it puts all the chats into one chat, combines them together. It's a really cool app. So I record in there, and then I take the recording, and then I upload it into Camtasia, and then I'll do some edits in Camtasia. 2 different edits. I'll do an audio edit and a visual edit. The audio edit goes into Buzzsprout, which is the audio podcast, and the video edit goes into YouTube. But again, I think I'm stopping the YouTube thing for that.
All right, so we got another question here. Get on that in a second. All these things that we're talking about that you might want to get started, we're going to take all this stuff, and I've got Brett Bishop, who's in the chat here. He's one of our tech gurus who goes and does the market center of the future. A lot of market centers, he just recently did the market center you're in, Chris. So all that stuff that's set up in there is thanks to Brett. So thank you, Brett, for going around and doing that. It makes our market centers that much easier to train out of. I'll team up with him. We'll get something on the regional website that's got the list of the different things that you could utilize to start your own podcast if you wanted to. So those people, would you give anybody any advice when they're starting other than just get started talking? What are some things that they should be focusing on talking about? I mean, should they go in there and start talking about real estate and how great they are as a realtor?
Well, I don't think you should ever be doing that. You should never be self-serving. You should really go out there and start telling your story. I think, you know what I did, I'm a very honest person, as you can tell here. I just say it as it is. And I feel like that's always the best way to go. So when I did the podcast, I would told people straight up, if you listen to the first episode, I said it. Hey, this is my first episode of the podcast. I don't know what I'm doing. Stick around. I'm going to figure it out and let you know. And the episode is like, all right, so I bought this mic. I'm not sure if this works. So I recommend, so I think we have moved in the way that we are salespeople, right? I mentioned before, we're not information symmetry anymore, that we're now more of connecting with people, and people are really connected to the journey of situations. So I think the real winners moving forward in the marketing sector, inside of that space, are going to be the people who really focus on documenting their journey as opposed to acting like they're pros now. Like if I came onto this podcast and I said, I'm the podcasting king, I'm the best, I know this, I know everything, whatever, I will lose half of you, if not more, because you're like, oh, this guy's gross, right? But if I'm being real with you, I'm like, hey, I said it from the very beginning, I'm not an expert. I'm going to be one. I'm not. And here's my journey. So my point to you guys is just do that. Just document your journey. Like, I don't know exactly why I'm doing this. I was told by this random guy, Chris, that I should do a podcast. So I'm going to do a podcast, and we're going to talk about my life and these stories, and maybe not. I don't know. Well, it might change depending on what you want. But one thing I do want some guests. You want to be my guest? Let me know. It'd be cool. Let's talk about life. Doesn't matter. You don't have to be a realtor. Just come on, let's talk. And I think by focusing on that and just having a broader conversation about life, you're naturally going to evolve into what you're comfortable with. And same with me, I'm still evolving. I'm only on episode, I think, 11. So
That's one of the reasons I wanted to ask you in, because you just started. I didn't want to get somebody who's been doing this for like 5 years and so far down the road they don't remember how it was to start. Because a lot of people who are on here probably haven't started a podcast yet, and they're going to want to start. So you're going to be able to give them actual good advice from your point of view, because you've got a little bit of experience, but you're not 5 years in, right?
yeah, and it's probably not the best advice because I don't know what that is.
No, it's okay. You've already told us don't use a soundboard. That's an expensive piece of equipment. And then one of the questions by Isabel here is why the recording app versus the recorder on your phone?
Well, from what I was told, Isabel, again, not an expert, but what I was told is when you record directly into your phone, there's just less options. Like if you can't see it now, but I'm looking at it, if you open up the Fairride app, there's these different settings that can just make you sound like has a more professional feel. So that's why I did it. And it wasn't much. I don't even think it was all, I think maybe it was like $9 or something. I could be wrong, but I'm like, you know what? I'm being told to do this. I'm going to do it. And then I think the first episode might have not been with it and one with it. I could be wrong there, but I remember hearing the quality through the recorder, or maybe a practice episode that I did wasn't on it. And then I did it. I remember comparing the two, and the sound quality was better. So in a nutshell, sound quality is better.
So later today, we're also going to have another speaker on who has been doing this for a little while. So if you want to come back and hear from them and maybe get that side point, it's going to be good. He does it a little bit differently than Chris does, though. His is not really anything to do with anything. And he actually advertises commercials in the middle of his podcast, which ends up getting him leads that way. So it's just a little bit different approach to the way things are going on. So today we're going to be talking a lot from different perspectives. We're also going to close the day with Maya Vander, who is doing a Netflix show on TV of selling sunset. And that's a whole nother approach. It's not podcasting, but it's kind of the same theory. They're all media, right? So what I'm going to do right now, because we're almost out of time, is I want to open this up for questions and see if anybody's got any questions before we're gone here. I really appreciate you, Chris. If we get pushed out of here too quickly, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences. So anybody want to put in the chat right now a question or want to come on, feel free to raise your hand and you can come and ask Chris any questions you want. All right, so we got Joanna here says, how can we put our podcast in Spotify?
Buzzsprout. We put in the chat a little earlier.
Yeah, Buzzsprout will syndicate it.
Yep.
That's one of the ones he uses. Brett, do you have any others that you could suggest?
Yeah, Anchor is one of them, and they're actually owned by Spotify, so that's a direct connection right there. And there's a lot of syndicators out there. I appreciate finding out about Buzzsprout from Chris. I hadn't heard about them. I thought that I knew most of them, hadn't heard about that, so that's cool. But Anchor's a good one. I know a lot of people use that, and again, owned by Spotify, so there's a direct connection there. And these syndicators get you to iTunes, in the Apple Play Store for podcasts, or Google Play Store, all that stuff.
What I'll do is I'll get with Brett. Brett doesn't know this because I'm just kind of throwing it on him right now, but I'm sure he's already got a list of stuff. So we'll throw a list of things together and some links so that if you want to go to these places and start, and if you want some equipment, we'll put that on our website. So just watch for it by the end of the day. I'll try and make sure I get this list and send an email out to everybody in case anybody's interested.
And like Chris said with Restream, I've actually used Restream a bit too. And if you are going to do a video podcast at all, that is an awesome tool for those reasons. Goes out to everybody at once.
So I'm going to add to that. So I have a training, and so I have a free training and a paid one. And in the paid one, we have a special Facebook page for it. And by the way, this is not a commercial for it. I'm just explaining why I use Restream for it too. So I connect Restream to that paid, for the people who have that paid training. And I do what's called pop-up trainings randomly, and I connect. So yesterday, for example, I had someone called me. They wanted me to give them evaluation on their property listing presentation. And my listing presentations are, again, they're done here. I record them. So someone was like, well, I want to know how you do that. I'm like, okay, well, how convenient. I'm going to be doing one right now. I put on Restream, connect to feed to that Facebook page, right? And then people can on that Facebook page can watch me put together my video listing presentations as I do. So there's all these cool features that you can do if you think outside the box, just like that.
We do have another question here. It says, like farming and other ways to market ourselves, what is the time frame you have to put a gauge on this? Is it worth the time? We all only have 24 hours a day. I think this is a great question. And before he answers it, I want to make sure you understand that Chris has only been doing this for a while, and his goal has not honestly been to lead generate on here. He's doing this because he has a passion for doing it. And we're going to have other people come on here today who it was their goal. They'll be able to give their time periods. But like you said, it's like farming. It's not instantaneous. It's not like you're going to get on a podcast, the very first one, and you got 30 leads coming in like we do on Facebook. So keep that in mind. What's your input on that, Chris?
Well, all the ways I've generated business have never been direct lead gen, if you will. It's all been about branding and connecting with people. So the best way I can answer is systems and models with everything. So on my team, I teach what's called the Dream 300. And the Dream 300s are the 300 people that you would be in love with, and they'll be in love with you in terms of working together. And we only focus on those 300 in that database. And if you don't have 300, I teach them that's a side tangent. I teach them other ways how to get there. But anyway, so by having a very systematic system, like every morning I work my Dream 300 through a series of steps. This takes me an hour and a half, right? And then I go in and check my emails. I'll bang that out for a little bit. Then I meet with my admin on Google Meet. And then in the afternoon, that's what I would leave open. So if I don't have an appointment scheduled or anything pertinent, if you will, I'll be like, you know what? Today's a good day for a podcast. And you're probably like, well, how do you just come up with content? You really don't. So a really good way I do it is like, I read a lot, and my wife and I, we actually have really deep conversations a lot. That's why I married her. We're very deep in our combos. And I have my notepad on my phone. And when something intriguing to me comes up, I'll just jot a note. And then I'll add to the note over time. And I'm like, that's eventually going to be a podcast, right? That's eventually going to be a podcast. So then when I'm ready to record that day, I'll pull up my notes. What do I want to talk about? I'll do a list of bullet points. And then if anyone's available, God, again, I've only done 10 episodes like this, guys. If someone's available on my team or whoever, I'd be like, hey, Marissa, are you free? Yeah, I'm free. All right, come on podcast. We're going to talk about this. Okay. So don't overthink it.
One of the questions that just came into me direct message is kind of similar to what you said. It's like, I think the troubling part for me is just the coming up with the content. So you just talked about that, how you come up with content. Do you ever like bullet point what things you want to make sure you talk about in that podcast, or you just add a little bit and go through it? Because I know for me, you and I are very similar in the fact that we'll just start talking and then go down this huge rabbit hole and be lost in Wonderland. So I would have to bullet point it for myself to make sure I do get my topics off.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, if you guys haven't noticed, I have a lot of energy and I do go down bunny trails. That is a thing, but I'm working on it.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. You just get passionate about doing, you get excited about it and have those conversations. However, again,
This is just how I am, Ryan, 24/7. It's annoying.
But in the same content, you do come up with a lot of great ideas, and you are writing it down. So he is writing it down to a point. He's got all these ideas he's writing them down, and he's coming back and recording them. And I think that's awesome. Just that's what happens. I go to bed at night and I'm sitting there thinking, and that's when I have my best ideas. And that's why I started keeping my tablet next to me at my bed so I can start writing all those things down.
So I'm going to say something to that real quick. It's funny you say that. So my son Crew, he's going through an age, he's almost 2, where he's waking up in the middle of the night and he's realizing that, by the way, this is a podcast talking about this. He's realizing that that we're not there in the room, right? And he's freaking out. So my wife last night, she's like, you're going to go lay in his room, and if he wakes up, you're going to console him. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But anyways, my point was he woke me up around like 2:30 in the morning and I couldn't go back to bed. And then I was thinking about today. And I'm like, and all the things I was thinking about how today, no, I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but this today doesn't ruin it. It messes up my morning routine of what I normally do in the mornings. And I'm like, that's a podcast right there. Like having morning routines, what I normally do, what I guess successful agents do, their plans, systems. Cause I think a lot of people, and again, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but we're going to talk about it for a second because I have 11 more minutes. So what most people do, they go into in the office, or they wake up with so much anxiety and they look at their computer and they don't know what to do for that day. Right. And that's the power of systems and plans and models, to have a consistent plan and model every single day. And I was so stressed out how my daily routine was going to be messed up by this podcast, that I was like, this is a conversation that probably should be had on a deeper level on a podcast. So anyways, that's all.
Ariel's yelling at me here. There goes my time checks. But no, I appreciate that. And I think that it is important to make sure we're writing down all these great ideas throughout the night and having these real conversations. So 2 quick questions real quick before we get out of here. We'll just make sure they're really quick. On the content, says, do you record these as separate audio and video, or do you do them together and just edit them? I think you kind of answered that earlier, that you are recording these and then you can go ahead and chop these up however you want. You can separate the audio from them, or you can keep the audio video together. So however you want to do that. And then let's see, what is the other one? Bunny Trails make the best episodes. That's great. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Also, how long do these have to be, Chris? On average, what does a podcast usually run?
The last few have been about an hour.
Okay. Now, do they have to be an hour?
No, it's just I'm wordy.
All right. So a podcast can be as long as you want, guys. If you want to, I just put in the chat here. We have some podcasts that are up on our website, and you're going to have the Think Like a CEO podcast on there, an amazing podcast.
Yep.
Got to go listen to that one. There's also Empire Builders on there. There's One Thing. I listen to the One Thing personally all the time. I love that podcast. And then Nikki's got her podcast on there for Mindset is a Powerful Thing. So that's Women Empowered podcast that she does. And then there's also the Team Building podcast with Jeff Cohn on there. So if you're interested in that one, go ahead and check that out. These are all on the these are all coming from Spotify, but they're hosted on our website as well. So I'm not hosted, but they're syndicated on our website. So go to the link that I put in there, which is kwsouthfloridaregion.com/podcast, and you'll find them there. And we'll continue to add to that list. So if you find any good ones that you want us to add to, or you want to share it with us, let us know. Like Chris's.
I have one. And
all right, what's it called?
No, I have a recommendation that's definitely not going to be on that list. If you want to learn how to perfect your craft on interviewing, why it's so important, again, listen to Howard Stern's interviews. Don't judge the man. Listen to his interviews. And he's a master at interviewing people, and he'll make you fall in love with people you thought you hated. And just do it. And just that. So I'm trying real hard to learn his skills.
I can tell that. I honestly, you told me that when we first met, and I started listening to your podcast, and I could definitely see the influence there.